friends, welcome back. Today I'm here with Luanne Hopkinson over in Melbourne, Australia, and Luanne is here to tell her really incredible story of almost full recovery, about 95% recovery from a 7-year journey with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS, chronic pain, mast cell activation syndrome, and possibly a couple other things that I'm forgetting, but I'll let her explain that to you. But one of the things I know you're really going to like about this interview is that Luanne has tried a lot of the things that you might have heard about and wondered, like, what is that about? You know, how successful is it? So she's tried a few of the more mainstream programs and healing techniques that haven't worked for her. So she'll share that with you, and then also stick around to the end because she's going to dive into exactly the formula that has worked to allow her to fully recover. She's also a nutritionist, a brain coach, a meditation teacher, and just all around really knowledgeable and amazing person. So Luanne, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate you being here, and it's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here. I've watched a lot of your videos and they were so helpful to me, and I really want to help others like with the same information that it's possible to get better.
Incredible. Well, I very much appreciate you doing this. So why don't you start as usual by taking us back and telling us a bit about your health journey. How did this all start for you?
Well, I really didn't have major health issues when I was growing up, apart from, eczema, asthma, just the general sort of stuff. I had some anxiety start up when I was in university, and I had some IBS pop up when I was in my 30s. But apart from that, I was healthy. It was that kind of thing where I worked, I had a full life. I was in Sydney at the time before I got ill. I was working as an IT project manager. Before that, I'd been an engineer in a male-dominated industry. I was one of the few women in my role. It was a pretty stressful environment, and I had some friends. I'd go out, I'd drink a lot, I'd have fun, I'd go traveling. I traveled the world. I did so many things. And when I got sick properly, I was in my early 40s, and I started to get tired. I just started to really get tireder and tireder and tireder. And I didn't live far from work. Sometimes I'd go home and have naps. I'd go home after work and I'd sleep. And I'd stop going out on the weekends. I stopped going to things. I'd have to go home early. I just couldn't keep up. And then a couple of days after my birthday, and I think that was my 41st, I couldn't get out of bed. I was just floored, could not get out of bed. And I'd also had, over the last year or so, a bit of a rash on my neck, itchy, watery eyes. And they'd said that, I had a bit of mold in my apartment. So we were like, okay, we'll get that remediated. And that was actually prior to me getting unwell. But when I couldn't get out of bed, it was like something else is also going wrong. Like I literally was sleeping 24, 22, 20 hours a day. Like my partner would wake me up and feed me and I'd go back to sleep. And I was still working, so I was still trying to work. So when I was awake, I was on the phone, like trying to talk to people to hand over so that they could manage stuff and all of that. I was quite a dedicated sort of A-type person, which I've seen is a very common thread through people who get unwell.
Oh my goodness, is it ever?
Is it ever, yeah. And so, it was one of these sort of things. It was like, okay, there was a bit of mold, but that was remediated what was going on. So I was really lucky. I had what we call an integrative GP who checked me for heavy metals. And I had mercury, really high mercury, as well as some other things. And I'd actually had some amalgam fillings removed a couple of weeks prior to the I absolutely can't get out of bed state. So it was a bit of a combination of things going on in my environment and the stress of my work and everything that seemed to feel to me like part of that, what do we call it, the initial crash. Yeah.
So I know you tried a lot of different things to get better. What did you do from there? Did you start going on your own journey of searching for answers, or were you still relying a lot on the medical system?
Yeah, so at that point I was fully medical system. So I did something called chelation therapy for the heavy metals. This is pretty hardcore stuff, and I don't think I appreciated it. I did it for a couple of years. I actually ended up having a reaction to the drug that I was taking for the chelation therapy. And that's when the mast cell activation syndrome started.
Okay,
So,
two questions here, because I hear a lot about this heavy metal chelation and I don't know what that involves. So it is taking medication, or what does that look like?
yeah, so this was an oral medication, although some people can do it through IV. There are a couple of different types of medication that they use. I won't say the one that I use because I don't want to influence people about what they think they should be taking. It worked effectively for a while, removing the metals. Like I was retesting every 3 months. I was doing it, but also being the type of person that I am, I wanted to do it right, and I wanted to, and I was so focused on this was the fix. This was the thing. And so I pushed it hard. I didn't just sort of gently do it. I pushed it. And I think that's part of the reason why it was too much for my body to handle in the end. I think if you do it really gently and you don't go too hard and you don't go too fast and you under good care of a good doctor, it can be very helpful, like extremely helpful. But also, I was doing quite a high dose because I switched doctors when I moved from Sydney to Melbourne, and I think that dose was too high for me. I started getting mast cell activation symptoms earlier, which I didn't realise. I had this bone pain and things like that, but that was kind of explained away as the metals coming out of the bones and things. But I feel like it can be a really useful therapy. There's definitely, if you have a lot of amalgam fillings and you've had them removed and they have not been removed under a care of a biological dentist who makes sure that all the mercury vapor is sucked out so you're not breathing it in as it's removed, then you can actually have all of that sort of treatment done quite safely, but you do have to make sure that you're well supported because It's not something to be sneezed at.
And then thank you for that. And my second question on that is, you said that you think that contributed to your mast cell activation syndrome. What is that?
So mast cell activation syndrome, we have mast cells throughout our whole body. They line all of our organs. They line our blood vessels. They're in our lungs, eyes, bladder, gastrointestinal system, and nerve endings all through our body. And mast cells can be activated by threat, by toxin, and also by stress, and by other things like bacteria, food, blah, 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 blah. So all kinds of things can activate mast cells. And if you imagine a mast cell as like one of those puffball mushrooms, and then something comes along and kind of triggers it, and it goes poof, and all these little inflammatory cytokines come floating out into the rest of your body. They go through your bloodstream. They connect to receptors in different parts of your body and cause symptoms. So histamine is one of the key ones that's known about that comes out of mast cells, along with a lot of other inflammatory cytokines. Histamine connects to pain receptors. It can create a lot of those allergy symptoms. And they've found high levels of mast cells in research studies for people who have IBS. So, there are links to mast cells in cardiovascular disease. So someone called Dr. Lawrence Afrin has written about that. And I think mast cells are one of the core issues actually in a lot of illness like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and other illnesses. It's just at a lower level than when you get full mast cell activation syndrome. It's kind of, they're all going off all the time, and any organ in the body can be affected, and it can be very debilitating.
Okay, so when we were talking before this, before we started recording, you had mentioned some of the things that you had tried, some of the programs. I think it'd be, okay, first, what did you try that didn't work so well for you?
Okay, so I started with diet because I'm a nutritionist. So I started with diet, and that worked well to a point. So it took the edge off the symptoms. But the issue that happened there is when you still have symptoms and you work with diet, you keep removing stuff. So I ended up removing everything, and I ended up on 5 foods. And this is pretty common for people with mast cell activation syndrome, because it's like everything is causing an issue and you don't know what. And I tried, I worked with an immunologist, I tried medication, I couldn't take it. I tried supplements, couldn't take them. I was reacting to everything. I was having anaphylaxis. I was basically in this constant heightened allergic state, as well as, bedbound and that sort of stuff. Most of the time housebound. So I got sent to a gut hypnotherapy clinic. So here in Melbourne, Monash University has done research into hypnotherapy and IBS.
Really?
Yeah. And they've had good research studies, and it's covered by Medicare here.
Wow.
And I went and did that. It didn't work because I had so much going on, but it took the edge off enough for me to go, why am I not doing this? Like, what's going on here? I'd studied a little bit about the brain, the vagus nerve, the connectivity with the rest of the body, obviously, in my studies. So then I had a look around and I found the Gupta Program. I watched that and it was like, of course, it just made sense to me immediately. So I watched my way through that. And then I went, wait a minute, I bought something like this a while back. A year or two ago, I bought DNRS, which is another similar brain system. I couldn't watch it at the time because of my fatigue. I just couldn't do it. So then I watched that. Okay, great. I'm the sort of person who loves knowledge. So then I was trying both of them. I found there were things that didn't work for me and did work for me in both of the different methods. I don't see anything when I visualize. I have that aphantasia where it's like, close your eyes, there's nothing there. So some of the things mentioned in Gupta didn't work for me. Some of the things in DNRS I didn't like. I kind of made my own thing up using that basis. So still using the same kind of tools and techniques of neuroplasticity training. That worked pretty well for me. Then when the pandemic hit, I had a bit of a nosedive because of all that, pandemic fear. You're very unwell, your immune system's compromised, you're really... Luckily for me, because I'd had an improvement, I'd been able to go to this meditation retreat for 2 days. It wasn't overnight, but I learned I rest meditation, which is a type of yoga nidra created for veterans by Richard Miller. That was a little lifeline for me. I did lots and lots and lots of iRest meditation, and I trained in it as well online, and that kept me going. So I was still doing the brain retraining and I was doing the meditation, and that helped me improve more and more and more. My journey was a slow one. I'm definitely not one of those people who's 6 months done. I took a while. After I'd been doing brain retraining and the meditation for about a year, I did something called the Safe and Sound protocol. That's an auditory protocol, so you listen to it through headphones. And that was created by Dr. Stephen Porges, and primarily started off for kids with behavioural issues and autism and things like that, and can also be really useful for adults, particularly when there may have been problems with tinnitus or ear issues or any kind of communication kind of issue or problems with dealing with people. So I did that, and that kind of opened me up just that extra little level and helped me with, because I was quite a little agoraphobic at that point, like a little socially phobic as well. I found it really hard to be on. I couldn't talk on something like this. Like I'd have my camera off and I'd listen and I wouldn't be able to talk. So that helped me like open up a little bit more. It's like every step is like a little layer. And then the next year I found out about something called MAP, which is called Make Anything Possible Coaching. A friend of mine had been doing that. She was in the healing community. She'd been working on her healing as well. And I started doing that. And that I found really helpful for that next level of healing. Things like core beliefs, behaviors. It helped me shift my little phobia I had about COVID. It just, boom, one session, it went. I went from like, my partner had to travel to Canberra, and I was like, I can't be in the house when you come home. I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to go somewhere else just in case you caught it. I did it while he was away, and he came home, and I'm like, come in, honey, give me a hug, all good. It just was brilliant. And I found it really useful as we heal. As we become safer in our body, more things come up. You know, the suppressed things come up, and the awareness gets better. We become more aware of our patterns and of our beliefs and of what's driving it underneath. And so I found it really useful to deal with and shift each one of those things as they come forth as well. So
this map one is new to me. Thank you for sharing that. I understand the general concept, but I know you can't give away proprietary content, but what does it really involve doing? Like, can you give an example of what it looks like in this process?
So it was created originally by Dr. Gary Flint, who was a psychoanalyst in mental asylums. And then Colette Stryker, who is in France, she worked with him and created it as a more of a formal framework. So with MAP, it works subconsciously with a lot of parts of ourselves that get created. And we're not necessarily aware of them, but they're there and they're driving our behavior. Particularly parts that are created before we're, say, 2 years old. Those are those parts of us that are linked to that amygdala, which develops, by 2 years old. It's that part that's also sometimes called the inner child, or also the worried part or the protector part, the fear part. And then you've got all these other aspects that are involved. And so we work with the subconscious mind to help to very gently bring forth some of the stuff that's underneath our conscious awareness, bring it gently into the active experience, and then clear and neutralize the emotions. So the memories are there, everything's still there, we're just taking away the charge.
Sounds like it has a ton of potential. It also sounds like overall, with your recovery, it's been pulling bits and pieces from a few different places. Like, if you had to summarize the top things that you think were the biggest drivers from all of that in your recovery, what would it be, or what would they be?
Yeah, so definitely like brain retraining, meditation, and MAP. Those are the top three. And I think it's really important for people to understand that we need to be doing the thing that's right for us in the right order as well. Because I think if you're very, very, very unwell and you go and do MAP, you don't have resourcing. You need to create resourcing before you go ahead and do that. I also did a bit of somatic work as well. Like, I tried somatic experiencing. It was terrible for me at the time. I didn't have the resourcing. It was too early. Whereas now I do a little bit of somatic work as well. So I do, breathing techniques, qigong, things like that. So that was another thing that helped me. But it's all about timing. I tried graded exercise. I was told to do that. I didn't have any resourcing for that. And I now am working on, I've got arthritis in my neck and my spine. So now I'm in the point where I can work on these things with a physiotherapist. But I couldn't work on them then. And I had that wobble head. So I know a lot of people are looking to surgery for the C1 and that sort of thing. Like, I couldn't hold my head up very well at all. It was all over the place. And for me, working on the nervous system through the brain retraining, the meditation, and the MAP has now helped my muscles and my body respond to physical treatment. So it's very much about timing. I think the biggest mistake we all make it's doing the wrong thing or too much, too quick. We're doing the wrong thing too early. Like it's not right for us now, but it's right for us at some point. Because it's a bit of an art to figure it out. You know, if you're able to start with something like the brain retraining and you just work on that, by changing what's going on inside our brain, it can give us more energy, because our brain uses 80% of the energy in our body. And if we're constantly like symptoms, thinking, worrying, thinking, ruminating on our thoughts about pain or food or whatever, we're using up so much of our energy. And so the easiest thing to start doing is stop giving away your energy. So stop wasting time on social media. Stop trying to learn things or watch things or do things. Stop listening to podcasts every second of every day, except for this one. Stop doing a lot of the things that use up our energy and giving away our energy, and then we can have more energy so that we can work on changing what's going on with our thoughts, using something like brain retraining to create that initial amount of resourcing or energy, so then we can work on other things. And there are some people who respond better to somatic work to start with, and some people respond better to the brain retraining to start with. You can only find that out by trying it. Some people just work better certain ways. But generally, I find you need to combine the two at some point.
So I wrote down from when you first emailed me, you said that, you know, part of this process was losing your identity and building it back up again. What do you mean by that?
So I was a IT project manager. I was out drinking and eating and traveling, and I had certain expectations about what I should do. I was a people pleaser. I had no boundaries. If you asked me what I wanted to do, to go out for dinner, I'd be like, I don't know, what do you want? Like, I really didn't have that sense of self. And look, I had a fairly difficult marriage and divorce as well. So that influenced a lot of my own sense of self, and I had to recreate that. So part of it for me now is, well, who am I? What do I want? What are my values? What's important to me? You know, am I going to have clients all day, any time of night? No. What works for me? It works best for me if I work in the morning for a couple of hours, and then I have time to work on myself and look after myself, you know, putting my self-care first. So really it's, just completely being a totally different person than who I was, really putting myself first instead of everybody else.
That's ultimately what I was thinking while you were speaking, because I hear so many different versions of what you're saying from different people, but essentially what I'm hearing is the same message of, you know, my ego had to die, my people pleaser had to die, I had to get over my type A personality, my perfectionist streak, that beating myself up all the time and driving myself. It seems to be some version of, I needed more self-compassion with myself, and I needed to be more selfish and start putting myself and my self-care first. And a lot of that seems to come from even just the voice, our own voice in our head, which is quite often the most dominant one, and the messages that we're pounding at ourselves all day and all night.
Yeah.
It's just such a big one I hear from so many people.
Yeah, I mean, my message in my head was, you're doing something wrong. Like, it was pretty much constant. Something's wrong, it's got to be you.
Yeah.
And the truth is, if you feel like something's wrong, it's probably a message from your body telling you to have a look at what's outside you.
The challenging part that can come from this is that it can be easy to say, okay, I know I can't be that person anymore. I know these things aren't good for me. And, you know, when I recovered and I wrote my book and I was in this place of like, I'm a new person, and oh my goodness, I think I'd cringe if I just read the last little section, but I had this very naive sort of feeling at the moment of, I'm never gonna put myself last again. I'm never gonna be an overachiever. But then you go back into life and you haven't learned how to not be those things, especially when you've been deep in a recovery bubble for a long time. So what do you think for people who are, like, when they're starting to recover and they're starting to go back to work and do all these things, how do you change your personality? How do you become a new person? Or what did that look like for you?
It's a real one bit at a time. You know, my first client, when I went back and worked again, it was 2 hours and I was exhausted, and I let the time, it was only supposed to be like 45 minutes. It ran over. I didn't know how to manage my time, my boundaries. I had to learn, and you kind of have to learn the hard way a lot of the time by doing things and then reevaluating, and then doing things and pulling back and just adjusting. And, you know, I've changed the days I work and the times I work and the way I work many times over the last couple of years as I've been fiddling with that. And, you know, when I started working, I was probably about 75% recovered, something like that. But I wanted to get back into it. I needed, and that was part of my identity, you know, I needed to have that sense of accomplishment, sense of doing something with my life. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and I was doing a master's in nutrition, and I'm still doing that. Like, I do still have that sense of needing to do things. You know, you don't, a type A personality doesn't disappear. A type A personality is gently managed, I think. And using MAP has helped me a lot as well, and working through and understanding what's driving the behavior. You know, why am I doing this? Like, am I thinking I'm not good enough? Am I thinking I need everyone to love me or whatever? Okay, well, I can shift that. I can work on that. I don't need that. Like, how can I be okay with setting my boundaries and just working step by step? We evolve constantly. The only thing constant in life is change, and that is us. We change slowly, but inevitably, I think.
Yeah, it's very much, I found, having the same attitude towards recovery and post-recovery as you did with illness. You know, I think a lot of us fall into that space of accepting it or expecting it initially, recovery to be this straight line towards perfect health. And then we realize it's more of an up and down, like a stock market chart, and to be okay with those up and downs and to step back and look at, one of my favorite words is trajectory. Like, look at the trajectory, one of my favorite words, but I can't say it, the trajectory that you're going. And as long as you're going in the right direction, and then just having that compassion with yourself along the way. So I realize I still push too hard and I get exhausted, but then I find that self-compassion comes in where I have to not beat myself up, because originally that's what I would do. Why are you doing this? You know better. You've already learned this lesson, and just beating myself up. And, you know, so many people have shared, I think it comes from a bunch of different brain training programs, but just that really gentle, just kind of like, stop. It's okay. You know, you're okay. Everything's okay. Every once in a while, you're going to push too hard. Every once in a while, you're going to be tired, or you're going to forget a lesson that you learned, and you're going to learn it again. And as long as slowly you're making it the right way, then you're doing okay. But that message of it's not going to happen overnight, I think, is important, because it does take a while.
It's really important. I mean, I started brain retraining in 2019, and it's now 2023. And it's, you know, I've been working on this slowly. I also forgot I did some of the Primal Trust Program as well. And that is very much about, you know, living your values. And the more you live in alignment with your values, the healthier you are, because your body is not going to be sending you messages that things aren't right, because you're looking after yourself in alignment with your own values. And I think that's really important too. And just noticing those messages, those voices of, you know, you should be doing better than this, and being able to talk back to them and kind of go, you know, like, this is life. Like, life has ups and downs. I've had a really rough 6 months. But healing is not about never getting sick. It's not about never having a problem. It's about increasing our resilience to life. Because life happens, and I've had a lot of stuff happen to me over the last 6 months. But I have the resilience and the capacity in my nervous system and in my body to handle these. Even with dips, I still had a little dip last year when all of this stuff was happening, but I came out of it and it disappeared. The little symptoms that came back, gone. So it's really about understanding that we are increasing our capacity to deal with life. We're not fixing or changing life. Life happens.
So like a lot of people, now that you've come through this, it seems to have changed your focus and your passion in life. It's no longer, those high stress jobs that you were doing. And like a lot of us now really, want to do what we can to support other people that are going through these sorts of illnesses. We still have millions of people around the world that are struggling. So I'm so grateful to people like you who are doing this work. So can you tell us a little bit about the type of support that you provide for people, or what is it that you're doing now?
So I combine my nutrition practice with brain retraining, MAP coaching, meditation. I felt like I couldn't just do diet with people because it's not enough. I needed to give people what I wish I'd had. And I also include a lot of gut healing work because our microbiome, they're so depleted by treatment. And our immune system is based in our gut as well. We really need to nourish that. And so I work with people in a program where we include the diet, the gut. I teach brain retraining. I include meditation and Qigong from a lovely friend of mine, and MAP sessions, and pull everything together so that we're really working on everything that's needed for healing. Because you can throw all the supplements and you can do all the stuff you want to do with the diet, but if you're not working on your nervous system, you are not going to get the response you want. So yeah, I pull all of those together, and I really help people mostly with mast cell activation, histamine intolerance, fibromyalgia, and ME/CFS like I had.
And for those of you watching, of course, all of this will be in the video description. So I really encourage you to expand it and take a look what's there, and you'll find everything that you need to learn more about Luanne's journey, about the work that she's doing, and how to follow her from here. Well, thank you so much, Luanne, for your time today. This is incredible. I really appreciate this. I know lots of other people will appreciate what you shared as well. So yes, a million thanks to you for doing this today.
Thank you. And thanks so much for, running these podcasts and continuing to have these messages to people that it's possible. It really is possible to heal. Because I know I was in that place where I was just like, my number's up. This is it. And I've been there, and I know what the fear is like, and I know that it is possible. It feels impossible, and it's not easy, but it's possible.
Yeah, I know sometimes in these interviews, I feel like we're repeating some of the same things, but I also know that that's important because sometimes we need to just hear again and again, okay, it's okay. This worked. The people are getting out of it. There is hope. And, I always think if people get nothing else from these videos but hope, it's by far on its own, that is enough. So yeah, I think that's really important. And to those of you watching, I'd love to hear in the comments, what's been working for you? That's another big goal with this channel. Our community here, our health stars, we're all so knowledgeable and have so much insight. So if you can take a moment to share in the comments, what's been working for you? What's been the most helpful on your journey? Because I know people read them and appreciate it. So if we all just compile our ideas and our experiences, we can really continue to work on getting out of this together. So yeah, thank you again, Luanne. Thank you to you who is watching. Whatever you're going through right now, keep at it. I know you have totally got this, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in the next one.